نشكر الدكتور حسين يحيى على هذا العرض الممتاز ومساهمة مع بحوث القطن في حل مشاكل الإنتاج الزراعي وحل مشاكل الاستهلاك المحلي ودفع عجز الدكتور شون هيلموت شون هيكلمنا عن التقدم الحادث على صعيد تحرير تسويق القطن. هو هيتكلم عن موضوع progress in liberalization of cotton marketing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Before I start, I would like to thank the organizers of this conference to provide me the chance to give a presentation about liberalization of the Egyptian cotton sector. It's a great honor and pleasure for me, in particular as a non-Egyptian, to talk about cotton, which is not just a crop and a part of the Egyptian economy. I have learned in recent years that it's also a tradition and a way of life. But we all know that sometimes also traditions and the way of life has to change. Everybody involved in the cotton sector knows that the liberalization of the cotton market is an extremely complex subject because of its interactions with the other sectors. Due to the limited time, I would like to focus only on the three subjects: the seed cotton market, the ginning sector, and I would like to end my presentation with some comments on the lint cotton market. At the end, I would like to give a short answer. The intervention of the government in cotton marketing started in 1952. Until the early 60s, the old market system has been replaced by a complete governmental control system which was ruling the sector for nearly 30 years. As we already heard today, in the late 80s and the beginning of the 90s, the government started with its liberalization policy. In 1994, the state was also mentioned several times. The picture changed completely with the laws 210, which is the domestic cotton trade law, 141 and 211 about the Cotton Exporters Union. With these three laws, the government of Egypt laid the legal foundation of the ongoing liberalization and privatization process of cotton marketing. The government removed the compulsory delivery of cotton and prepared bases for the access of all markets by any private or public trader. Through these laws, the cotton sector moved from a purely governmental sector to a regulated market, in which the private sector has access to the market and influence on the implemented market regulations which are set by different committees in the sector. As far as I understand the process, reasons for this stepwise approach towards a free market are manifold. As we heard, there is the importance of the sector for the economy in terms of employment and income of millions in this country. There are the small farmers and the importance of cotton as a major cash crop for them. And there was no private sector. So how to go to a liberalized market without having a private sector in those days? According to the changing market regulations implemented in the past, the Egyptian cotton sector has followed a winding and twisting road towards a more and more efficient sector in the economy. This assessment becomes obvious if you look at the participation of private sector actors in the seed cotton market. After the start of liberalization in 1994 and 1995, significant quantities of seed cotton have been purchased by the private sector, reaching nearly 60% of total production. In 96 and 97-98, floor prices for farmers above export prices or lint cotton prices reduced the participation of the private sector in the seed cotton trade significantly. This resulted in a huge carryover and a huge financial burden for the government of Egypt. In 89-99, the responsible bodies made a major step forward and fixed seed cotton prices according to export prices. This has led to price reductions for producers, but it made the sector more efficient and private sector came back into trade. Due to the fact that cotton prices are depressed worldwide, Egypt decided to announce low prices for seed cotton again in the ongoing season. The objective was to maintain farmers' income. But on the other hand, the government also introduced the deficiency payment scheme, which allowed the private sector traders to participate in trade. The result is that the private sector, with about 40% of the seed cotton this year, was purchased by private sector companies. In addition to the increase of private sector participation in the seed cotton trade, the number of companies delivering seed cotton to the chins has increased from 7 or 8 in 89-99 to 18 in the ongoing season. This also has to be considered a major step forward. It underlines that the private sector is more and more prepared to participate in the market and to take over responsibility. Another interesting point is that 4 public spinning mills started to purchase seed cotton this year, which was quite new in the recent years. That means that for the public companies, only less than 50% of cotton was traded by the public companies. Another important development which has to be mentioned is the increased importance of cooperatives as a market partner in the seed cotton trading. In 98-99, the cooperatives have marketed about 18%, and in the ongoing season, about 27% of the seed cotton went through this market channel. Out of this, 65% was sold to the private sector. That also means that there is a trend towards diversification of marketing channels, which also means that there are more choices for the farmer to market the cotton. Egypt's ginning sector consists right now out of, according to my knowledge, 59 gins owned by 3 public and 3 private ginning companies. The chart shows the development of privatization in the ginning sector, which has started with leasing, and now all private gins are owned by the company. The major step of this privatization took place in 96-97 when 2 of the public companies were privatized. Since then, no further progress has been made to privatize the remaining 3 public gins. Also, according to my knowledge, several private trading companies had expressed their interest in buying one of the remaining public gins. Under the given situation, the private sector has about a share of 37%. The privatization and the liberalization in the ginning sector has significant impact on the performance of the overall sector. Private sector investment contributed to the invention of new and improved technology, like manual cleaners for seed cotton, investments into new gins and gin stands, and in particular the introduction of the universal density bale in Egypt. This allows direct imports from the gin, that means no cost for kafara and a reduction of contamination. According to my knowledge, I don't know the figure of this year, in last season about 1/3 of the exports were UD bales. The last point I want to talk about is the lint market. The total lint production this year is about 220,000 tons. Out of these 220,000 tons, about 85 tons have been exported so far. This is about the same quantity as our major competitor, US Pima. The export chart, the green light, shows also the fluctuation of the Egyptian exports. But since 1996, we could constantly increase our market share. The major reason has to be seen that since then prices became more and more competitive, and the problem of contamination has been tackled by campaigns of the Ministry of Agriculture and the already mentioned technical innovations in the sector. Looking at the participation of the private sector in the export market, we see in general a growing share until last season, when the private sector share declined slightly. In the ongoing season, the private sector share fell to about 17%, despite the huge quantities of sea cotton purchased by the private sector. Accordingly, the share of the private sector in the domestic trade has increased significantly. That means the local market became attractive for the private sector. I would like to end my presentation with a short outlook. As I mentioned, Egypt chose a stepwise approach for market liberalization and went from purely governmental sector to a regulated market controlled by institutions which are steered by the private and the public sector. I'm quite convinced that in particular Germans, like me, understand the problems and risks of restructuring a whole economy. Having the burden of former East Germany in mind, we know about risks and impacts of privatization and liberalization. And this we understand also for Egypt. But we also see the chances which are in a private and liberalized sector. I'm personally convinced that Egypt took the right decision not to go too fast. But I'm also convinced that we have to go further with the reform. After several years of making experiences and important preconditions are given. We have, of course, the political willingness and support. We have a private sector which has proved to be competitive on the national and in the international market. And we still have the best cotton in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you.